Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello and welcome to our course Marketing Management Part 2. This is week 2 session 5 and we are discussing about product life cycle management. I am Shashi Shekhar Mishra and I have with me Senior Professor Jayanta Chatterjee. We are from Department of Industrial and Management Engineering, IIT Kanpur. So I will just give you a brief recap of what we were discussing in the last session, and there we have started talking about what is product life cycle management, what is the concept of product life cycle, and then we have looked into the different stages of product life cycle starting from introduction, growth, maturity and decline, and Professor Chatterjee has explained that curve of sales versus profit in much more depth. You can refer back to the previous session if you want to go back and have a look on that. And then we started talking about the introduction stage. In particular, we have talked about the characteristics of introduction stage, where we have seen that when a new product is introduced in the market, the company generally face technical glitches in the initial stage. They have to ramp up their production processes, dealers pipelines have to be filled and the customer has to accept, and that is what the most important thing is. And then we have seen also in the introduction phase is characterized by heavy investment in the promotion side, because if the product is really new, you have to make customers aware about the product category, the product, its benefit, the cost attached with the product, what are the basically how to use that product. You have to induce trial, and there are a lot of investment and resources goes into that part. And then also in basically dealing with the other things which are part of the overall promotional strategy. So in general you will see that this introduction stage is a quite resource extensive stage. And then we have once discussed that, we started talking about introduction strategies, some of the choices a marketing manager has to make in the introduction stage, whether you should be a pioneer or whether you should be a follower. So we discussed about the benefits of being a pioneer, and then where we have talked about some of the benefits of being pioneer is high brand recall, that the category itself is begun to known as the brand actually. So we have given you some examples of Band-Aid, zipper, escalators, and then establishes basically the pioneers establishes in the minds of the consumers, they create the knowledge about the product category. So what are the basically important attributes in the choice of making the selection of the product, that is being more or less being decided by the pioneers. And then we also talked about customer inertia, that customers once accustomed to a certain kind of product will find it difficult to switch to another more brand, and that is a huge advantage to a pioneer, because customers reluctance is embedded in the fact that they will continue to use a product if they are satisfied until unless they get an opportunity or a substitute which is significantly better than the existing thing. And then economies of scales, we have talked about the spread of the fixed cost, and then we have looked into this one more thing which was technological leadership. We started talking about the pioneers disadvantage, and there we have seen the initially when the products comes, they are generally quite commonly they are crude in their nature, they come with technical glitches. You do not know as a marketing manager what is the exact positioning of what should be the most appropriate positioning for you. Then you arrive earlier than the time you should reach in the market, and lack of resources to compete big firms is another problem. So the last point where I have stopped, I will begin from there. Another thing that happens with the pioneers is that increasingly in the past the firms have shown this behavior of organizational inertia, wherein firms have tasted the initial success, or they have been successful with in the past with some of the new product, but later on the same company fails. Nokia is one big example of that. We can have a case about it in the later sessions. So, Nokia has been so successful as a company in 90s, and the first initial part of post 2000 also they were the market leaders, but they actually fall. They had a fall, and what was the reason of this fall was, it was some of the analysts says that the fall was embedded in their success actually. So, basically what has made an organization successful makes them believe that they will continue to succeed in the same way. However, as we say, the change is only the permanent thing. The market changes are very fast, and if you do not foresee those changes coming, you may fail.
So, success becomes a trap for failure.
Yes, yeah. So, and what is the reason some of the scholars have attributed to this is, many times managers in an organization, if they have invested in a technology, in a product, they will like to continue in that product or the technology, would like to harvest as much as they can, so that they can increase the return from that product. However, in this process of what you are trying to maximize as your return from a particular product, you do not see the change in the needs or the change in the trends in the market, and then you do not keep up pace with that changes, and that is where these firms lose. So, the organizational inertia, one of the part is like this rigidity comes from your investment. Once you have invested in something, you would like to remain invested there, and you do not want to basically see the changes because of your existing investment. The second thing which some of the scholars attribute is that your processes are very bureaucratic in nature, or the design of the organization is very bureaucratic. Over the period of time, organization, when it starts from a small firm, a small startup firm, but it grows with the success of its product, once it becomes very big, the channels of the communication and the process becomes very rigid. So, any idea or anything which has to move across the different levels of the organization or the management, it takes lot of time, and that basically reduces the responsiveness of an organization. On the other side, if there is a small firm or basically entrepreneurial efforts, they can do whatever they want to do in a very minimal time actually. So, that's what make these organization, large organization, very susceptible to this kind of changes in the market.
But even in the entrepreneurial organizations, another form of this inertia happens.
Yeah.
That also is, you see, an entrepreneur is initially successful, then in the entrepreneur's mind some kind of complacency or invincibility,
Yeah.
a sense of invincibility develops. And so, there are many examples where the entrepreneur did not listen to his or her own teammates, and because he or she had taken risks earlier, they were successful. So, they believed that they would be able to come up with innovative breakthrough ideas every time. So, sometimes they can make a very wrong decision and yet keep on pursuing it, thinking that no, last time I made a breakthrough, by keeping on, this time also it will happen, and it can completely flop.
Yeah.
So, we see therefore inertia or this inability to interpret the signals for changes, be it in product feature, be it in the pricing mechanism, be it in the product placement or distribution mechanism. In all of these cases, this inertia can be a very big drag, and therefore one has to create the necessary motive force inside to counter this drag.
So, with this probably we talked about I think our discussion on the spinous advantage and disadvantage is sufficient. Now, when we will also look into the followers strategy, like what are their advantages and what are their disadvantages. So, when we look into the followers advantages, one of the biggest advantage of follower is that they do not have to incur as much as probably a pioneer has to invest. So, the R&D investments are very fewer, very few compared to your the incumbent pioneers investment, and that makes their fixed cost to be very less. And since you are imitating a product, your cost is less, and so you can price it low, and that is where the one of the biggest weakness of the pioneers product comes from there, that the followers can come with a product at a significantly lower price, and that is a probably
and sometimes they, as the Japanese have done it again and again to the Americans, like it happened in the camera market, it happened in the television market, it happened in the music systems market. The Japanese came later, and they were not the pioneers, they were followers, but they came with significantly better engineered product of higher quality and more attractive price wise.
Yeah. So, the second point what you are talking about combined with the first point is continuous product improvement. So, whatever might be the weaknesses of the pioneers product, the first product in the market. So, as you are saying, the Japanese have observed those things very closely, looked at the market reaction to them, and based on those things, I mean those feedback or the reaction, they have continuously improved the product and improved the product in a way that it becomes significantly better than the pioneers offering, and that basically topples the pioneers from their market position. So, that is another thing. And the third thing that comes is like some of the large firms, they have brute market power in terms of the distribution channel, in terms of their marketing function size and its efficiency, and the way they can promote the product, or probably their brand which can give them an advantage in the market. So, based on these things, that Golder and Tellis have suggested that a large number of pioneers actually fail, and then basically they say that what can be done by the basically follower, or what can be done by basically the pioneers. One of the suggestions that comes for any organization in such scenario, particularly in technology sector, is that they should continuously innovate. And one of the probably recommendation of Professor Tellis in his research is that that companies actually managers fears about the cannibalization of their product, but he says the smart managers are those who can deliberately cannibalize their existing
it is
product.
better that you cannibalize your own product rather than somebody else does.
And you provide the migration path from one product point to the second product point to your customers, so that the customer remains with you, and at the same time you keep on basically moving up in the ladder.
But there are some very interesting cases here. Take for example Sony and Sony's Walkman. Okay. So, this personal or portable music system existed before Sony's Walkman, but Sony Walkman engineered itself into a form factor, into a size, etc., which really made a blitz in the market. And Sony was very good in the sense that they followed all these, that they were persistent. Sony introduced relentless number of changes. So, even though many companies in Europe, many companies in America, Asia, they copied Walkman, but Sony was ahead, and Sony remained ahead for almost 2 decades. And they introduced, I think, tens of 20 changes, model changes, continuous improvement with respect to battery life, continuous improvement with respect to music fidelity, this anti-rocking, that means you can you will hear perfect music even when you are running, or even when you are jogging, or even underwater, all that, but yet they were not able to see the coming change which came with Apple. And interestingly, people say that the reason they did not see that change coming, or even if they saw or sensed that change, they could not grasp it, because by that time Sony had already acquired assets to produce tapes, content.
Yes, yes.
So, they were in a way wedded to the success of their cassette business and or their CD DVD business. So, they did not see this wireless delivery which
Yeah.
Apple brought in, and one song at a time, all that freedom they brought to the customer.
Yeah.
And so, in spite of being adhering to all these things that we have there,
Yeah.
long term leadership, vision of the market, persistence, relentless innovation. So, which means that you just can't rest.
Yeah.
You just can't rest on your laurels of past achievements. Even after 15 years of maintaining a very good record, you can fail miserably.
Yes.
Sony Walkman today is out of the market because this Apple iPod and then iPhone that has completely changed the music delivery
The way the
industry.
Yeah.
And those products are today gone, completely
Absolutely.
gone. So, even if you have a very leading product and you have come as a fast follower, you have been very successful, even then you can be foiled by your own game if you are not alert.
Yeah. Okay. So, this probably it takes us to the conclusion of this discussion about pioneer versus follower, that we characterize advantages and disadvantages of both, but as you have actually said, like conclusively saying which one is going to win is very difficult to predict actually. So, one thing is there is that what I get from what you said is that one should not be, as an organization should be cannot take anything for granted in such markets, and has to continuously look for what is happening in their markets with their customers, and more than serving the existing needs, focus on the latent needs or the needs for tomorrow is something which is very important.
That is why Andy Grove, who was a professor at Stanford, but he was also the CEO of Intel, and he gave this slogan which is, I think, even very pertinent today. He talked about maybe 20 years back that only the paranoids survive. That means you have to all the time look behind and see who is trying to catch up with you with what kind of game plan. And Andy Grove even went on to say that CEOs, the chief executives, managing directors, traditionally their role had been seen as a person who kind of keeps everything together, is a person who sort of calms the organization, keeps things stable. And whereas Andy Grove said that in a high tech organization, in a consumer electronic organization where change is continuous, it is the CEO's duty, what he called, to create the burning platform. Like when you are on a ship and the ship is burning, everybody is anxious, people want to change, they want to jump into the water. They are not, because they feel that if they stay on, they will be burnt with the ship. So, that sensation that we must change, and change is what we have to embrace, is and we have to be paranoid about that, that the competitors can come from any side.
Anywhere.
The competitors can come from your own domain, or as we have seen in case of Apple, that Sony was in music system business, in a consumer electronics, and whereas Apple was in computer, which was supposed to be professional electronics, but today they are all mixed up. So, you need to have both a long vision as well as a wide vision. Both lenses must work together for you to be on top of this game of a new product and succeeding with new products.
Okay, so looking at the next choice level with at the introduction stage of the product is whether you are going to have the penetration pricing or probably you are going to skimming pricing. So, penetration is like where you want to take the products to the maximum possible customers in the market, and the skimming is you want to restrict your product to the customers which
high
are
paying customers,
high paying customer who have a greater willingness to pay, and that is how you want to extract the maximum profit at the initial stage of the market. Now, these two strategy, if I want to basically apply, so there are some of the guidelines like which way you should go for, like you have to decide what kind of demand it is. If it is an aspirational product, then probably skimming is better. Then rather than going for the penetration strategy, and that is where you will see that what you have talked about, I think in previous session, about Apple's pricing, that Apple keeps the prices on the higher side and they bring down the prices after a particular time period, because they basically first target to that aspirational group which takes that iPhone as something which is closer to their aspirations, and that makes them to pay for much higher prices than probably a regular mobile phone will fetch. The second thing is that how distinctive is your offering from your competitors. So, the more the difference it is, probably it will go for the skimming pricing. The third thing is the importance of price in choice criteria. If price is not a very important thing, then probably the penetration is better, because customers, if you take the price beyond a point, that threshold, they will probably not purchase the product because of the higher pricing. The fourth thing is that ease of duplication also. So, in case if you keep the prices on a higher side, then the what you say that copycats can come into the market, a similar type of products can come into the market, because they see there is a huge margin for that product, and even if they sell it for slightly cheaper prices, people will be ready to purchase such kind of product. And then you have to also, at the last, you have to look into the ROI, or probably the organizational objective, or what kind of basically profit an organization is looking from that product, or what kind of organizational objective an organization or firm is trying to achieve through that product. So, that will probably give you the direction between penetration versus skimming.
Yeah, and 30-35 years back, when we studied marketing, at that time we all admired DuPont, because DuPont was a company, they came up with innovative products again and again, and they followed this skimming price strategy. They always pegged it high, and then over time they brought it down. By that time they were ready with some other product, etc. And but later on, I would say maybe even 15 years back, when I was teaching marketing, I always used to say, the days of skimming is gone. And I said that no longer, because the speed of catching up by your nearest competitor is so fast that you just can't have this skimming strategy anymore. It will you have to penetrate as quickly as possible and occupy market space and get customer loyalty as fast as possible. So, I used to teach that no longer a company can follow skimming strategy. Then came Apple, and I was surprised, because Apple came into a market which earlier was Nokia, Samsung. They were all following in a way penetration pricing strategy. They were all trying to reach out to as many customers as possible, and they tried to keep it as low as possible. But then came Apple, and they made skimming pricing again a valid strategy. So, it is very difficult. It all ultimately depends, I think, how good you understand your products, your customers. The point you said, that a phone which when Apple came in was an utilitarian product. Nokia or Samsung, they were all selling on the basis of bits and bytes, speed, functionality, and so on. And Apple sort of came in not with that proposition. I mean, their functioning was excellent. It had all that famous user interface, ease of use of Apple, but on top of that, they made it I think a product of beauty. The people were proud to possess an iPhone. They were proud to show people that, see how beautiful this picture is if I use my iPhone. And so they changed the game from an utility and logic based marketing game to an emotion and aspiration based, aesthetics based marketing game. So, they understood that there were a large number of customers who were looking for something they could be proud of, and something that was not a phone, but a style statement or a personality statement, and they created a product which matched that particular requirement, and they won. So I think the very interesting thing from your slide I can say is that like fashion, I think no marketing strategy dies, and new marketing strategies are often reborn as a reincarnation of some old strategy, and it all ultimately depends on how well you understand your customers, how well you understand your product, and how well you understand the matching between the two.
Okay, I think we can stop here today, and then when we will meet in the next session, we can talk about the I think the last part of last session.
We can look at some cases then maybe.
Yeah. So we can begin with some cases which talks about these example, and then we can conclude or wrap up the remaining stages of the product life cycle management in the next session.
Okay.
Thank you.